How did you feel about the previous 3 games that the team competed in?
I would say it's disappointing. Obviously we had a big win at home in front of our great fans on Friday night, and then we had an opportunity to go on the road and take some points from Fort Wayne and from Wheeling, and we fell short, by 1 goal in both games, and obviously that was disappointing. And in the one game in Saturday, we lost the 5-on-5 game 3-0, but we won the specialty teams. Our PK didn't give up any shorthanded goals against, and our power play got us a goal. Then Wheeling, it's a different story. We won the 5-on-5 game 2-1, and our PK couldn't, gave up 2 shorthanded goals, and our power play couldn't score 1. So it's, again, it's back to the drawing board, and obviously we've got only 6 games to go. And it's exciting, though. You get an opportunity to, move some lines around and maybe ruffle some feathers. And but I thought it was important for these last 2 weekends to, send a message to our group that we think we're better than this, and it's important for us to start executing.
It's been fairly evident that the third periods have been executed pretty well, I guess from my standpoint, and the shots on goal dictate that. And even the players have admitted that they've really put their foot on the gas in the third period. I know it's not a simple answer, but how do you make that a building block to implement through all 60?
Dan and I, we debate over that. I have my own feelings on that, and I can share it with our audience. I believe that teams do just enough to win by 1, and then some teams do just enough to lose by 1. Now that's maybe a contentious sort of statement, but I think that 1-goal games are not as close as people think, and it's on us, it's on me to try and get our group to get what I would call over that hump. And I'd like to go 4-2 or 5-1 in our last 6 games, not because we have to, but because I think we're capable of that. I think the group that we have in that room is capable of more.
When you look at Toledo as an opposition, this is obviously the final time we're going to see them, and they're the kings of the division. We talked about this in the beginning of the year, that they're turnkey. How do you approach this team for the final game of the regular season?
Again, I think the final regular season, game of the regular season is much easier than the first game. Obviously, we've had a lot of time to study them. We're very familiar with their game, as I'm sure, Pat and his staff are familiar with our game. I think it really comes down to execution. It comes down to us. What we talked to the players about today was us creating or generating more scoring chances for and giving up less scoring chances against. It's maybe a little bit of an oversimplification, but it's not too far off. We haven't done a good job of that, and it obviously cost us this weekend, where we were only able to get 2 out of a possible 6 points. And this weekend we're going to have to address that and execute at a higher rate than our opponents.
Last weekend when you looked at the lines, I noticed you put Neil up with Matsushima and Lee. And it was very evident on Friday's game that line was finishing checks left and right. Do you look at that? Do you examine that as maybe a force for not only to lead by example, but also just dictate the pace of play?
Well, I think I got to start specifically with Max Neal. Max Neal plays inside of guys, and he does it, and he can skate, and he has, no problem putting his body through guys, which then again gets him on middle ice. And, his speed is pretty blinding. I'd put him up there with Mats and with Lee. So he's a nice complement piece to that line. Now, the other part of that is that he does like to go to the front of the net. So then all of a sudden that brings, one of their defenders to the front of the net with him, which then allows Lee and Matsushima to play 2-on-2 as opposed to maybe 2-on-3 or 3-on-3. So we've actually put him back on that line as of right now, as the week progresses, and we'll see how that line does. But I do think we need to shake up the lines. We have done that today because, as I said earlier, we think our group is underperforming.
Well, Coach, just one final question for you. Final weekend of the season here on home ice. Just a quick comment about the fans and what they've brought game in and game out.
It's been incredible, to see it grow from game 1 against Toledo here to now we're at the final 3. To be a witness to that and see how it's evolved, and the passionate fan base that we now have. And as I've said numerous times over the last, couple of months, we haven't been here for 3 years or 4 years. We've been here for, call it 6 months. And I think our guys, our players, deserve a ton of credit for that. They are in the community. I think our front office staff deserves a lot of credit for that. They create those opportunities for connection between the community and our players. And I think that's been one of the biggest organizational successes we've had this season.